New York City is the greatest city in the world. Culturally rich, ethnically diverse, it is a true melting pot where traditions and trends are created. People move here from all over the world to follow their dreams. From the tip of Staten Island to the top of the Bronx and everywhere in between, you will find entrepreneurs on every street corner. These are their New York stories.
Hi, I'm Thomas Bennett from Bennett's Bicycles in Staten Island, New York, serving the 5 boroughs for 5 generations. We've been selling bikes for over 100 years, and this is our New York story.
So Thomas, thank you very much for having us.
Oh, my pleasure.
We don't meet a lot of 4th generation business owners here.
Okay.
And yet you're one of about 10 or 12 centennial plus companies here in Staten Island.
Yes, Staten Island had, unique families. We were all very close. It was a small place until I built the bridge in early 60s. It's a very, tiny community.
When you think about being in Staten Island and kind of being here as one of the oldest bike shops in New York, did you ever think that this would be, a place where you'd be working side by side with your brother for 40 some odd years?
No.
No.
No, but it just evolved over the years, and just time just keeps going past, and, our kids are growing up, and me and my brother get along pretty well for
brothers.
Yeah,
Yes.
for brothers, and, watching the children grow up and everything, so it's been a pretty great trip, actually.
The company was started in 1896. Your
Yes.
great-grandparents, right?
Right, yes.
And that was the mode of transportation. And yet, what were they doing prior, I'm just curious how they came to being in the bicycle business.
Well, it was the bicycle business, and also it was a telegraph business back in the late 1800s and stuff like that. And then in the early 1900s, my grandfather also did refrigeration. Then the Depression hit, and nobody had money, and he had to survive. He had 4 children, and that's how they had to survive.
And so he diversified by being
Exactly,
able to
right,
have a
right.
lot of, so when one thing might have wound down, then they brought something.
Exactly. And then my father went off to the Navy, and actually my 2 aunts and my grandfather ran the business. And back that was in Stapleton, and they had, they used to rent bicycles out. And that's how they rented out bikes for years and years and years.
So it must be so rewarding in so many ways, or so exciting to see how the biking kind of resurgence has occurred in New York.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. See more people are riding, and it's more family orientated than ever. I guess one of the best thrills is we get some old timers coming here saying, "Wow, I remember when," and everybody comes in and says, "I remember when you were this small," and this and that, and that's pretty rewarding when people come back with their families and their grandchildren and so on and so forth. Even though Staten Island has changed dramatically as far as
How
the
so?
amount of people that are still natives is like probably 10% of the people are still natives.
Wow.
So that's pretty
It's a small
drastic.
percentage.
Right. That's so so I'm the last one in my family that is here.
To live here.
Right, but my 3 daughters live here, so.
So you talk about, it's interesting because sometimes when I have met business owners, they are, in a business that is like a means to an end, if you will.
Right.
But here you're marrying your passion as somebody who loves to race with your business. Does that ever feel like you just kind of have to break out of it, or how do you
every now and then I don't want to race for the business. I want to race just for myself. And as I got older and stuff, when I was younger, I was like, oh, it's good business, it's being good being out there. And now I definitely do it, mostly for myself and everything like that. And in this, small retail, you have to love what you're doing because the money isn't tremendous.
And the business, like when you think about when you were a kid and you said that you didn't know your great-great-grandfather, but you knew your grandfather, and worked with your dad, when you think back, there's a bit of a what's old is new again. Do you feel like that's happening here?
No, just the complete opposite. It's kind of like how cell phones. Your phone's a year old. All of a sudden, it's not what's happening. It's not as good as everything else. Where in the high-end bicycle industry, if you don't stay current, product, you know, the bike I race on is 2 years old. It's basically dated. But for me, it fits me fine, and it's good, so I'll keep going with it. But if you don't stay current, then it loses all its value, and then you have to replace it and everything like that.
And so what does that, as a business owner, mean for you that your father didn't necessarily have to deal with? So in other words, are you changing on inventory all the time?
Yeah, it's different. You got, you know, the inventory changes, and prices are a lot more expensive than it used to be, so you have to be very careful because there's a fine line of, you know, being profitable and not profitable. You know, repairs in the last, I'd say probably 8 years have definitely gone up because a lot of people are dragging a lot of the old bikes out. Because a lot of people don't want new and they don't need new. So they're very content with just taking their old bikes. I get more and more people that would spend twice as much on a used dirty bike than they will on a new bike, because if they're going to Manhattan or Brooklyn, they feel it's going to get robbed, so they don't want to buy a new bike. And for years, I'm like, you know, I'm not big Manhattan or Brooklyn where I go with my bike a lot. I couldn't understand it. I'm like, why wouldn't you want? I can get a $400 bike, and like, no, I don't, because it's going to get robbed. So I was like, it's really wild to see that the people in the different boroughs is finally coming to Staten Island, how the influence of Manhattan and Brooklyn, where they want the regular, they don't need a new bike, they just want transportation.
Well, the pressure to have kind of a variety when you have the opportunity to look online, so to speak, and
oh, yes,
you know,
yeah.
how have you learned to manage your business as that has become a more accessible way for people to purchase?
We're working on that every single day.
What does that mean?
It means it's getting harder and harder. I mean, the online shopping is, you know, the way everybody does everything. We're very well aware of that. What we have, though, is we have a service business. So even if you buy something online, 99% of people really cannot get that extra, you know, they can't figure it out.
No.
So they bring it to, you know, and that's what we have going for us. And, you know, we have, again, experience and a good reputation with that. But as far as sales, it's very hard to compete. I'm not, you know, our sales have gone, as far as accessories and stuff like that, have dwindled. And, you know, it's not right or wrong, it's just the way the world is going.
I guess, you know, I mean, as you talk about I mean, that's one of the things we like to do on the show, is to be able to inspire others through people who've made mistakes, or they, you know, they found success in a way that they never thought they would. I guess, you know, as you think about the tenure of your company and the legacy of your company, if you had, you know, if you had a whiteboard and you could get 3 wishes, what would those be in order for you to be able to think much more, you know, in the future?
Wow, that's a tough question. That's a tough question. Probably would have expanded to a different borough.
To a different borough.
Because it's just so much, again, there's so many more, you know, just what you could just see on the Brooklyn Bridge in one day. There's more cyclists than I'll see in 5 years here. You know, so it's just not, it's just, you know, when it was a small borough and it wasn't as much traffic, it was a friendly borough to ride a bike in. It's just not friendly now, so it's kind of like, the writing's on the wall. It's just very hard around here. Like I said, if they put the park where they say they're going to put the trails into the old dump and stuff like that should be really nice and stuff like that. So.
But, you know, we were saying before how you're 130 years old, and it's, you know, tremendous pride in owning the company. And, you know, when you think about the different members of your family, your dad, your you know, when you think about what they gave you as, you know, lessons, and then you pass on to your kids, what are those things that they've given you? Honesty.
Honesty is number one. Because anytime in my whole lifetime, if I bent the rules or told a white lie or fibbed, 99 out of 100 times, it would come back and be right in your face. And I instill that. I instill that in my everybody. Don't because you could bend the truth a little bit, but if you flat out try and get over on somebody, that will come back. I'll guarantee that will come back. So honesty is honesty.
Okay. Customer service.
Customer service. You know, try and just be like I said. Treat people how you'd want to be treated. That's what my father would say. Just treat that person how you'd want to be treated.
you know, 40 years there have been lots of cycles, lots of economic cycles, and I'm curious if there was ever a point where, you know, I almost can envision like you and George, your brother, sitting at the table, you know, with a cup of coffee and saying, okay, if we don't have X, Y, and Z,
Yes.
then we're not going to be able to do this anymore.
1976.
76?
I don't know why, I just remember my father coming home and saying, we don't have enough money to pay for the bills. And I was like Christmas time, because that's when everything would come to a head. And I was like, that's when, you know, me and my brother started thinking about running the place, and he came home and told us that. And we were just like, wow.
How old were you, if you don't mind me asking?
20.
Wow, okay.
So, you know, it was like the first time I ever heard them words, and I probably learned a lesson from that. What happened?
Scared?
Oh, yeah, because we had stock that was like probably 2 years worth of stock in the store, because somebody had convinced my father that this was going to be the year that everything was going to be great, and buy it now because there's going to be a shortage. And he bought into it, and he got burnt. And
what did you learn from that, actually? Because that's an interesting, because it really clearly, I mean, you know, you can tell that it had a very significant impact on you. You remember that moment very clearly.
That salesman or salesman, even if they're friends, you still have to, because I know exactly what happened. You know, now I can look back and see what happened and stuff like that. And, you know, you got to take care of yourself. That's the way, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. You really have to kind of look through the blinders and say, all right, that is a good deal, that is a good point. But I'm the one who has to pay the bill. So if it doesn't, you know, the business isn't there, then you're not going to be there to help me. So just, you know, kind of like made us realize that nobody's invincible, and no matter how strong we thought we were and everything.
But how did you get out of it? I mean, because so you're at this crossroads in which you don't know if you're going to go into 1977.
It was 2 years of very, you know, it was very slim. It was very slim. Like I said, we're a family business, so it's not like, you know, me and my brother, sometimes we haven't drawn a salary. That's just part of it. You know, luckily, very luckily, we have wives that have very good jobs, and that's always been something that we could always, you know, sit back on and stuff like that. But in a business, you know, talk to any small business, it's not unheard of for the owner not to draw a salary. That's why people say to me, like, if I want to go race my bike on Tuesday night, they're like, I said, I can't go, I got to work. They're like, but your name's on the building. I'm like, yeah, exactly. I'm like, exactly. And I say that too much, but it's just a fact the way it is.
So let me ask you these two parting questions.
Sure.
One, what's the best part about owning Bennett's bicycles?
Turning that key every day and saying this is ours, saying it's me and my brother, and knowing how much we did for our families on our own. No help from nobody. Like I said, we've been lucky and unlucky. Like I said, we never had to borrow money from people, family members or nothing. My brother's fantastic with all the books and everything. So we kind of did it our own way, and never, ever did we have to ever ask anybody for, like, hey, you know what, we're in trouble, which is pretty awesome.
That's very awesome. And you're talking about the young guy that came in, and he was excited, he's going to be opening a new business. If you were to say, hey, there are 3 things that you got to make sure you do or don't do, what would those be?
Do it your own way. Don't listen to what the salesman is saying. Read through it.
Okay.
All right?
Number 1.
Okay. Another do?
Another do.
Have fun doing it. Have fun doing it. Because like I said, I'm 57 now. I started here when I was 16, graduated high school young at 17. And now I'm looking and I'm like, it really does go that fast. It really, you know, grandfather, it really does go that fast. So do have fun doing it.
Okay.
Do enjoy it a little bit in season. I know when you're like, you want to cry, just enjoy it.
Okay. And what should one not do?
What should one not do? Don't believe all the hype. Don't believe all the hype.
What does that mean?
Don't think that you're as good as you think you are, because it's only hype, and you gotta still open the door the next day and everything else, and it's another day. It's another page. As my brother-in-law, who's very smart and intelligent, says, just another chapter. Life is just another chapter. So the good, the bad, and the ugly, when it's really bad, just think of it's another chapter. When it's really good, it's like, ooh, I want this chapter to last longer. But it's just another chapter.
Well, I think there are many more chapters here.
Oh, I'm not going
nowhere. There are lots of bumps along the road.
We're not going
but it's clear to me that there are many more chapters to come.
Thank you very much.
So thank you.